Welcome to the July webinar for Pressfeed, and welcome to all of you. Thank you very much for being with me this morning. I do appreciate that. Let's get started. We're talking today about the 3 skills that we see are impacting media relations in 2015. And if you'd like to follow us on Twitter, there's my personal handle there at Sally Falco, and I tweet all the time about things related to PR, digital PR and technology, media relations, newsrooms, that kind of thing. And then you can follow Pressfeed. And if you want to tweet while you're on the webinar, the hashtag for today is 3skillsMR. So go ahead, feel free to tweet away. If you find anything interesting enough to share with others, that would be great. So for those of you who don't know me, I have been involved in digital public relations for 15 years, and I've been doing traditional PR for far too long. And my blog you can also take a look at if you're interested. It's called Proactive Report, and you'll find it at www.proactivereport.com. I started in 2003. Can't believe I've been blogging for 12 years. It's amazing. Who knew I'd still have something to say after 12 long years? But it is still a top 20 PR blog, so you may find interesting information there if this is a subject that you are interested in. So let's dive in and take a look at what the situation is with the media at the moment. So I'm sure you are all totally aware of the fact that the traditional media landscape is shrinking, and we're constantly still seeing cuts in the newsrooms. There's more and more digital reporting happening and less traditional print and other reporting going on. And one of the things that's happening, as you can see here, Sports Illustrated laid off all their staff photographers, so did the Chicago Sun. It's happened in many other places. And as the technology advances, reporters are expected now to do everything themselves. So we all have this little device in our pockets that has a wonderful camera in it, and suddenly the reporters are expected to do their own research, to find their own experts, get out, find the story, do the interview, do the photograph, do the video, come back, edit it all. It's all on their shoulders now. So here are just some recent stats. Well, they're not so recent, but it's the most recent we have available. So you can see the newspaper newsroom workforce is still dropping. That was in 2012, and it still is just, that line is still going down. Same with the magazines. It's still going down. And it is not only the reporters and the photographers. The other area that's putting the traditional news into a bit of a pickle is the fact that it's support staff like researchers and fact checkers. So things that, as a result of this, what's happening is in the 2015 Pew Research State of the Media report, they do it every year. If you're not familiar with it, I would suggest that you go and look up Pew Research State of the Media report. They do it every year. For someone in the PR and media relations industry, it's very, very helpful data. So this year, they said that what they're seeing is that there is less and less original reporting happening just because they don't have the resources. Even on TV news, that most of the news that's being reported is things like weather, sports, crime, current events, but there's very little original in-depth reporting going on. They just simply don't have the manpower and the resources to do it anymore. On the other hand, there's a huge pressure on them to deliver. The public is getting used to this idea that they can have access to information right now, every minute. So if there's some event going on, some big news thing happening, we have become very impatient and we want to see it. We want to feel like we're right there, and we want them to update us every second as it's evolving. We don't want the 24-hour news cycle, which we were used to 10, 20 years ago, that when we knew something was happening, we were quite content. We knew that by tonight we would see it on the news and the TV, and by tomorrow morning we could read about it all in the newspaper. And we now want to see it right now. So that's put a tremendous pressure on the media to deliver more and deliver more often, and yet they have less and less and less and less resources as time goes by. So they really are kind of between a rock and a hard place. The thing is, it's really hard for them, but it has opened an enormous door of opportunity for us. Because one of the other things that Pew Research had said in their 2015 report was that they are seeing information in news stories that is coming directly from press releases, hardly changed at all, if at all. So if we can become the backup and become a resource to the media that we would like to have covering our stories, there's a very good chance that they would use that material. Assuming that you do it so that it is genuine news content and not just branded fluff. They're not going to be interested in, oh, okay, tell my story because you don't have any other story to tell. But what you have to do is really put on the hat of the journalist at this point and start to think like a publisher. What is it that the public really wants? How can my story fit into this desire for constant original news? What do we have in the way of research and experts that we can deliver to the media which would make their job easier and allow them to write a story which they wouldn't otherwise be able to write? And we will obviously be mentioned in the story. So it's a totally different way of thinking about how to work with the media and how to deliver good content to them. Journalists are always looking for a new angle on a big story. Just think about it logically. When there's a very big news event happening, every news media wants to report on it because we all want to know about it. So they have to report it, but they can't all keep regurgitating the same thing over and over again. That doesn't work for them. If we've seen one angle on the California fires in the LA Times, you're not going to read it if it's in every other newspaper as well. They have to keep finding new angles if they're going to keep the story alive. So they are always looking for experts, new angles, people who were there on the ground, eyewitnesses. How is it affecting the people in that area? Who can they talk to? And of course, they're looking for visual assets. And this is a little phrase that you need to kind of tattoo on your forehead. A visual asset is only worthwhile to the media when it extends and enhances the story. So it's not a case of, oh, I've written this story. Oh, yes, I need images. Oh, gosh, scratch my head. What am I going to put on it? Oh, wait a minute. Can I just take this thing and slap it on the end? Okay, good, I have a picture. You really seriously have to think about the value of these visual assets. not only to the media, but remembering that they're using it because they have a public. And how does this help the public? If I am the public and I'm looking at your story and I read the story and there's maybe 300 or 400 words there, how could you produce a couple of different images or maybe a really short 1-minute video that totally gave the reader more reality, more insight, more emotion, more understanding of what happened? That old saying of a picture is worth 1,000 words is, I mean, you can't even believe how true that is. So they can read the 400 words, but when they look at those pictures, that's what actually makes it real for them. They experience it when they see it. We're very visual beings. Our brains process visual material much faster than linear text, and we get much more out of it. Because for many years, we as PR people have really been trained in the skill of writing and painting pictures with words. That is one thing, and we still need to do that. It was never our job to produce the images. That's why we also had photographers and videographers. But as much as the media has fired all their visual staff, we may not have them either. But we have the same facility to really go out and do this. And if you have a budget, this is something that it would pay you to invest in. Make sure all your staff knows how to use that little phone in their pocket to the very, very best of their ability. Get them trained in visual content. There are several apps for either Android or iPhone that will help you to create original images. Now, interestingly enough, it's not only the public and the media who like the idea of original images. Google really likes original images. And now bear in mind that once you've gone through this whole procedure, you have a story idea, you produce the story, you pitch it to the media, they like it, you maybe work together on it and produce it. It gets published in a nice big media outlet. The public is now has to become aware of it. And believe me, these media outlets are very aware of the fact that search is where it's getting found. The 2015 Edelman Global Trust Barometer this year, for the first time, reported that search is the #1 most trusted source for news and information. So you have to make sure that your stuff is being found. All right, so how are you going to figure out what to write, what to take pictures of? What will the media be looking for? How can you become a resource for them? So the first thing, the first skill really that you have to figure out is how to do media analysis. And there are some tools that can help you. Cision's very good at this. If you have a Cision account, you should talk to them about how they can help you to look for gaps in coverage of your industry. It's not just where your stories have been or haven't been, but you need to really start looking into what is the media writing about. So how have they been covering your industry or your topic or products that you make or services that you deliver, thought leadership that you have, research, any of those things. What has been covered in the media and what hasn't been covered? And try and figure out why. If they didn't cover that angle, do you think it's just because they didn't know about it? Or was it too hard to do it? Did they not have access to someone who could do all that research? Maybe you have that research. Maybe you have experts. Have you really made the media aware of every expert that you have? Do you have an expert database in your newsroom? This was something that came up as one of the major media trends in our 2015 Media Trends and Online Newsroom report that was out in March maybe. That was one of the things that the media really is hot for at the moment, is they want a database of experts on every media newsroom, because these guys, as I said, are under a tremendous amount of pressure. They're working 24 hours a day. They're always on the go. They're on their mobile devices more than anything else. So everything that you produce must be mobile friendly, must show up in mobile search so that they can find it. And of course your newsroom has to be mobile friendly so that when they land on your newsroom they can look for things like expert databases. And then look at what are they not doing. Is there some story that could be told that you think should be told? It's a really interesting story, very newsworthy, and yet the media is not doing it. Could this be because they lack the resources? Is it something that's going to take a lot of graphic, interactive charts, maps, images, video, whatever, and they just obviously are not going to do it because they can't? Well, could you do it? Could you work with them? Pitch. There have been very successful stories done where a brand has pitched to the reporter, look, here's an amazing story. We get that it's going to take a heck of a lot of work to produce this the way it should be produced, but we have the resources. And we're willing to work with you and with maybe some outside experts that we know about, maybe some researchers, and we put together a little team that will work together and produce the story. And then you might be looking at, was there a story where they didn't mention your company and maybe they should have? You could have contributed something very valuable. So then you have to start thinking about, well, why did they not reach out to you? Do they not know about you when they did a search? And believe me, this little harried picture of a journalist is not very far-fetched anymore. This is what they look like. This is how their job is. So we've lost a lot of the legacy journalists in all these cuts. Those old salty dogs that knew everything and knew everybody, those were kind of the first ones that went out the door. And we now have a lot of younger, less experienced journalists working in the media. And when they get given a story that they don't know everything about, they do what everybody else does. They ask Google. And if your content and your newsroom does not show up when they do a search for keywords related to stories they might be writing, they're not going to call you, and then you're not going to end up in the story. So you just have to figure out where these gaps are and how you can correct them or fill them, or you have to look at your media list and think, how have I been doing my outreach to these journalists? Do I really know them? Do I make relationships with them? Am I following them on Twitter? Do I read all their stuff? Do I know what they're writing about? There are a lot of resources for us now, things like Muckrack, where you can find journalists and make relationships with them. Harrow, still Profnet, where people are asking. Media Diplomat, they ask for experts and input on articles that they're writing about. So we also have resources, and there's technology that can help us. But we really do need to make sure that we are reaching out to the journalists that we want to have cover our stories, and we have to know who they are, what they're doing, what they're interested in, how they write about things. It takes a lot of homework to do this, but it really does pay off in the end. So there are a couple of things that are very obvious. There is a growing gap in medical news. A lot of medical reporters, like single-hatted medical reporters, have been laid off. So the medical news is now just being covered by someone who's doing 3, 4, 5 beats. On the other hand, there's a growing demand for medical news. So if you are an institution, a hospital, healthcare provider, whatever, you look at what Mayo Clinic has done, and they were smart because they've done it for years. They cottoned onto this idea of content and search, I don't know, 10 years ago. Excuse me. And their content is everywhere. And they get quoted everywhere. Kaiser went one better. They started their own news service, Kaiser Health News. Kaiser Health News gets quoted everywhere. They had the budget. They hired journalists. There's another one, Swedish, up in Seattle. They do a really good job. And a lot of their content is used in the media because they produce really good medical news and they pitch it in a way that fills these gaps. Live events are not being covered very much anymore. So if there's some live event relevant to your industry that you have a part in, you should really cover it well and take lots of pictures and video. As I was saying earlier, the in-depth stories that take a lot of research or need a lot of visual support, those are the ones that fall through the cracks. And that's an area where you could really look at it and say, what could we do? Because there is a huge opportunity. There was one I saw that got a lot of attention. It was up in with a PBS station in Northern California. They partnered with a company and a university, and they put together a whole team to do an in-depth coverage of what's happening with the water in the San Joaquin Delta. They would never have been able to do that on their own. But everybody that contributed to it got fantastic coverage, and the PBS station got an amazing story. So in that Pew Research, they're showing that sports, weather, and traffic account for 40% of the content on newscasts. And the story lengths are shrinking. So these are all the gaps that you need to be looking at. Travel is another one, that travel and tourism is not getting the coverage that it should anymore either. And we know that photographers were amongst the hardest hit by the job cuts. So that's another, photographers, artists, and videographers. That's an area where you could pick up the slack and really get good media coverage. I worked on a project with an agency a while ago, like 6 months ago. They did a really, really good piece of research on the state of hospital websites and how digitally accessible hospital websites are for their patients. And when they had done it, they wrote up this whole report, pitched it to the media, and got practically nothing. And so they consulted with me, and I said to them, you really need to have more visuals. It's a really good report, but it's so data heavy. It's, I don't know, 20, 30 pages of just little spreadsheets, and you know, you read it and your eyes glaze over. If the media can't even understand it at a glance, they're not going to use it because they know their readers won't. So simply by rewriting it and then doing a lot of visual work for it and making it a big infographic, very easy to understand the main key points at one glance, and then relaunched it and repitched it to the media, and it was covered everywhere. And they got over 1,000 really qualified leads from people who downloaded that thing. If you know what the media wants, look at what you have and how you can reformat it, repurpose it, so that it will get picked up by the media. And believe me, they do love stats and they love infographics. So this is from the Pew State of the Media. This adds up to a news industry that is undermanned and unprepared to uncover stories, dig deep into emerging ones, or to question information put into its hands. So right there is your big opportunity. They can't uncover stories. You need to do it for them. They can't dig deep into these emerging stories. If you have such an emerging story, present it to them in such a way that they will use it. You have to do the dig deep. And you have to do the fact checking and making sure that everything that you give them is newsworthy, visually stimulating, and ready to go. Because this is what the public wants. They want the images and the videos. So you have to figure out how to tell a story visually. So here's your second skill. The first one is figuring out where the gap is. The second one is learning to tell the story visually. We always think words first because that's how we were trained as PR people. That has to change. You've got to start thinking visually. So how do you tell a story visually? You have to know what the story is. And then think visually first, not last. So as I was saying a little while ago, I know because I've done this for 25 years. I'm a writer. Here's the story. How can I write the story and paint the pictures with my words? And we're very good at that. And then we think about what we should put on visually, but we have to turn that around. You've got to start thinking visually first. What is the visual that will tell the story? If I didn't have any words, if I only had one picture, what should that picture be? What picture will tell the entire story? Now you know what the story is because that's your first thing. So let's say the story is about the Boston bombing. Okay, well, we know what it is. So now what is the picture that's going to tell that story? And to tell a story, you really need more than one image. But your images need to be in sequence and they need to actually tell the story. So a picture story has a theme. They all have to be about one subject, but they have to support the central point. So when people look over the 2 or 3 or 4 images, in sequence, they have to get the story. If you're making a video with a story, make sure that it's not just a talking head saying what's in the text. I had a client who's at a liberal arts university, and they did a really beautiful new building on their campus with a big courtyard that was for student recreation, and it had a food court and a beautiful garden and a fountain and all. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I had said to them, when you do this, you need to do a video with the press release, thinking that it just is logical that when I say to you, make a video of something like that, that is so visual, you will actually go and take a video of the thing. But they wrote the story and they had a spokesperson in the video talking about what they had done. And then they said to me, well, you know, it's all very well you say you need to use a video. It did nothing. We didn't get anything. And I said, well, yes, but there actually was no visual. It was a talking head. If you've never seen the Intercontinental Hotel videos where they use their concierges, I would really recommend that you look them up. Just do a search in Google for Intercontinental Concierge videos. I'm sure you'll find them. A couple of years ago, they took all their advertising budget, millions of dollars. And what they did was they hired camera crews in each location where they have a big Intercontinental. And they did an interview with the concierge because, of course, the concierge knows everything about the destination. That's what their job is. So in the beginning, there's a hero shot of the hotel, and there's a shot of the man or woman who's the concierge, little quick 1-2 seconds introduction. Hi, I'm Joe, and I'm the concierge at the blah, blah. Let me tell you about why you should come to our destination. And then he starts to talk, and you do hear that soundtrack through the little 1:30 video, but you see everything that he's talking about. And now as we go down this little alley, you will see here's you can see the bay, and here you can see the museum of the whatnot, and here's this marvelous little cafe, and this is the best nightclub, but you visually see everything. It's fine to have the talking head doing the voiceover, but you don't need to see his face through the whole thing. Sometimes you need more than just a picture or a video. It needs illustrations and charts. Here's a little bit from that San Joaquin Delta. They used graphs, maps, animation. And you must use the visuals to show more than that was told in the text of the story. Again, extend and enhance. Now, if you're not going to, just make a big plaque and put it on the wall in front of you. Visuals must extend and enhance the story. Now, where are you going to put all this content? You need a content hub, and the best place to do that is in your online newsroom. So the question to reporters this year was, where do you conduct your research? First answer, 92% on the website. Second, 77% in the newsroom. Then drop down, 42% on social media. And so on down we go. But your website and your newsroom are the first places that reporters will go. If they know that they're looking for you and your brand, then it's pretty easy. They're going to type in your URL. They're going to look at your website, and they're going to see whether or not you have a newsroom, and is your newsroom easy to find, or have you buried it somewhere under about the company, and sometimes I really find it hard to find a company's newsroom. Put it front and center in the main navigation. Hello media, here we are. This is where you want to go. On the reverse side of this, if they don't know about you, they will be looking for sources and experts, and they're going to do a search on subjects and phrases related to the story that they're writing. So you have to see if you could figure out, say, I don't know, somewhere 10 or 15 key phrases that relate to the most relevant things about the news that you write about. And make sure that your newsroom shows up when anyone does a search for those terms. So 97% of the journalists said it's crucial for a company to have an online newsroom. And more than half of them said they visit corporate online newsrooms once a month. 45% said they go at least once a week. And 85% of them say they visit an online newsroom of all companies, all sizes, small, medium, large. It's only 8% who only go to the big companies. So this idea that you don't need a newsroom if you're a small, fast-growing company is crazy. The media is interested, and they are going to the newsrooms. And bear in mind that we live in the age of smartphone reporting. This is a real picture that was taken at in a car accident. And here's this guy. He has $13,000 worth of really high-end camera equipment. And what's he using? He's using his phone. Most of the smaller companies have not upgraded their newsrooms. They tend to just be a list of text press releases like this. Many of them do not pass Google's mobile-friendly test. That means they will not show up in mobile search. And as we know that a majority of the journalists are using mobile devices, and they are searching for content and experts and research on their mobile devices, it is vitally important that your newsroom shows up in mobile search. That newsroom could look like this. It could have a featured story. It could have featured videos. It could have the press contacts with the pictures and their social connections, an image gallery, a video gallery, all their social accounts, Facebook, blog, Twitter. Make it easy to share it with, like this page. This is the kind of thing that is expected, and when the journalists find this, they love it. When you do a search on a mobile phone, your newsroom should show up right away. So the one on the left is for David Lerner Associates. They're a financial services company in the New York area. When you search for them on a phone, you'll see their site comes up first, their newsroom comes up second. For Pressfeed, same thing. If you search in Google for Pressfeed on a phone, our site will come up first, the newsroom comes up second. And then it's formatted. If your newsroom is mobilely responsive, then it can tell what device the person is on that is searching. If they're on a desktop, it will deliver the desktop version. If they're on a tablet, they'll deliver that. If it's on a phone, it comes up like this with the menu at the top and going down. Everything is there, but it's easy to read. It's properly sized. The images and the links are all correctly placed. Because you don't want to make it hard for the journalist once he does find your stuff. If he then can't use it, you're just going to frustrate him. So it really, really is vital to have a newsroom with all the features that the media expects. And it has to be mobile friendly because you must show up in search on a mobile device. These journalists and bloggers are all out and about and they are using mobile devices. According to Google, it's not going to be that long before pretty much all search is going to be on mobile. At the beginning of January this year, for the first time, Google reported that they are getting more searches via mobile than via desktop. And so those two lines are now diverging. It really is time to make sure that your website and your newsroom are mobile friendly. So the third one is that you have to be able to measure what you're doing. If you're not familiar with the Barcelona principles of PR measurement, that's something else you need to do, another little piece of homework. Go and look up PR measurement Barcelona principles. There were 7 principles that were put together, I don't know, 3-4 years ago now, on how we should be measuring PR stats. And we have the tools to do it, so it's really time to learn how to do it. So I'm going to give you a little sneak peek. We have developed a Google Analytics PR measurement dashboard. So I know that when we say analytics to a vast majority of PR people, the eyes glaze over and you say, oh, you're right, I think I've got something really important to go do right now. However, this is vital. I mean, seriously vital. So we've put together this Google Analytics PR measurement dashboard so that you can just dip your little toes in, and it's a dashboard of the main things you should be looking at. And it will make it easy to get started. And once you get used to doing it, this dashboard is just kind of like a high level, and then you can start digging into it and going further and further and further in if you want to learn more, because Google Analytics really can pretty much tell you everything if you have set it up correctly. So one of the things that this dashboard is going to show you is your social traffic. Where's your social traffic coming from? So in the color, the darker blue it is, that's where most of the traffic is coming from. So I can see that in my Pressfeed newsroom, I'm getting most of my traffic from like Southern California and New York. And then the rest pretty much spread, nothing in the middle. It'll tell you where your visitors came from. Now, this is important because if you put out a press release and you get an article in Forbes or the New York Times or wherever, it's going to show up here. And it'll show you where is your traffic coming from. Just a little while ago, we received a really big spike in downloads of this 2015 Media Trends report that I mentioned earlier. And that was released in March, and we'd done a couple of webinars in March and April. And then since then, we've had a sort of steady stream of not, like not a big amount, but sort of people see it, people tweet about it. So there's like a steady little stream. And suddenly last week, we had this huge spike of downloads over 2-3 days. So immediately you want to know, well, what caused that? Because if you don't, then you're in the position of, well, that was interesting. Gee, we had a huge big spike of interest in our product and we have no clue. Where did it come from? What happened? Who published the link? Could I make a relationship with them? Was it in the media? What happened? If you don't know that, it's just like, oh, well, we had a spike. That was nice. Maybe it'll happen again. Maybe it won't. Nothing I can do about it. So looking at Google Analytics, I could see that the traffic came from YouTube. And it came from the first webinar that we did about the report. We always record the webinars and then we put them up on YouTube. So that video of the original webinar is where that link was. But because I put a specific tracking link in that video, that allows me to see anytime somebody clicks that specific link. So now I know immediately where all this traffic came from. It was from that link, which I know is on YouTube. And then a little detective work. It took me a little bit more digging, and I eventually discovered that it wasn't it wasn't mentioned in the media. It was an influencer who had posted that link to the video in a status update on LinkedIn. And she has a huge following that are very loyal. Many of them went to go and watch the video, and they must have watched it all the way to the end, a whole hour, because that link is only at the end. But that's fantastic data to know. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had any of this information. So this is what you're going to get in this. These are the little widgets. You'll see social sessions, which pages were shared in social, the percentage of new sessions by source, so that's where did they come from, which are the pages that are getting the most traffic, where did your visitors come from last month, the bounce rate, and the bounce rate tells you how many people came to your site, only looked at that one page that they landed on, and they left. Now that can mean two things. It can mean either they came, they found exactly what they wanted and they left, or it can mean they came, they didn't find what they wanted and they left. But it's a very useful piece of information. You can see real time who's on your site right now. You can see who is there and where did they come from. And you can set up goals so that you can see the outcomes, which is the big thing in the change in PR measurement, is that you need to be measuring outcomes and not outputs. Outputs is what we do. We wrote press releases, we wrote a blog post, we pitched the media, we managed to get it in the Wall Street Journal, whatever. That's what we did. But we want outcomes. And then what happened? How many people saw it? How many people clicked the link? How many people watched the video? Who came to the site? Who shared it? Who downloaded the white paper? Whatever. And in real time we can see that, and we can see the real-time bounce rate. So this is in beta at the moment, but it will be released publicly for anybody to use free of charge, I believe on the 5th of August. If you want to find out more about the dashboard and how to use it, then join the Measure PR Twitter chat on August the 11th. You just go to Twitter. If you've never done a Twitter chat before, the best way to do it is to use tweetchat.com. T-W-E-E-T, chat, tweetchat.com. And when you arrive there, you just put in hashtag MeasurePR, and then you'll be in the chat, and you can just listen if that's all you want to do, or you can contribute if you'd like to. And then there will be another webinar with a complete demo of how to use this dashboard and track your PR effectiveness on the 18th. And we will send you an invitation because you're now on our mailing list, so we will definitely send you an invitation to that demo. But in the meantime, I would encourage you, there are lots of ways to learn to use Google Analytics. Google has a free Google Analytics training that you can do, video trainings. If you're a member of lynda.com, it's L-Y-N-D-A, lynda.com, they have training on Google Analytics plus everything else in the universe that you'd ever want to learn. There's a book that you can get on Amazon. It's called How to Learn. It's called Learn Google Analytics in 10 Minutes. And you can get that on Amazon. So there are many ways for you to learn how to do this. If you want to just wait for our dashboard and we can help you to learn as we go along, that's fine. If you want to do stuff in between, there are some ways to do that. So I'd be more than happy to help you and give you an evaluation of your current newsroom and a demo of the Pressfeed newsroom and tell you how this could be improved and whether or not you pass the Google test for mobile visibility. All you have to do is just go to our site and hit the Get a Demo and then fill in that little form. So thanks very much, and I'll let you know when our next one is in August.